Simple Solution Study Guide number 5. In question number 1, Kendall read 1 1/4 books in half a day. At that rate, how many books would she read in one day? Well, here, this rectangle represents my full day. Half of the day she spent reading a book and 1/4. So that means if she continues at the same rate, the second half of the day, she would read 1 1/4 book. So that means that I have 1 1/4 times 2. Change my mixed number into an improper fraction. 4 times 1 plus 1 is 5, and I keep my denominator, times 2, which I changed into a fraction by placing it over 1. 5 times 2 is 10. 4 times 1 is 4. I can leave it as an improper, or I can change it back into a mixed number. 4 divides into 10 2 times, and I have 1/2 left over. That means in one full day, she would read 2 1/2 books. Number 2. 60 falls between which two perfect squares? Well, here I am first going to set up my problem. I have the square root of 60. I want to find the perfect square numbers that are right below and right above 60. Well, 7 times 7 is 49, and 8 times 8 is 64. So that means that 49 would be my perfect square number right below it, and 64 would be my perfect square number right above it. Moving on to number 3. In question number 3, it wants us to circle all of the rational numbers. Rational numbers are any numbers that can be written as a fraction. So that means 12 can be written as a fraction as 12 over 1. Negative 33 1/3 can be written as a fraction. It just happens to be written as a mixed number right now. Our last statement here, we have a decimal and it has ... following it. That means that this decimal is going to continue forever, never repeating the same number or series of numbers. Therefore, this number would be irrational and I would not circle it. Moving on to question number 4. In question number 4, we are solving for variables C and D. When I look at this figure, I notice that in the bottom left-hand corner, it has the symbol for a 90-degree angle. So I know that this angle here is 90 degrees. Well, if this angle is 90 degrees, that means that these two angles here are complementary, meaning that they add up to 90 degrees. That also means that this top right angle is 90 degrees. And it also means that this left angle here is 90 degrees. So here, if these two angles have to add up to 90 degrees, I know that this angle here is 32 of my 90. So I would take 90 and subtract 32 degrees. And that's going to give me 58. I now know that this expression here would have to equal 58 degrees. So now I'm just going to take my equation and solve for D. So I have 4 times D minus 6 equals 58. I'm trying to get D all alone, so I would add 6 on both sides. On the left side, my 6 cancels out, and I have 4 times D equals 58 plus 6 is going to give me 64. Now I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. 4 divides into 4 one time, leaving me with D. 4 divides into 64 16 times. So I now know that D equals 16. Going back to find the value of C, looking here in the top right-hand corner, I know that these two angles are complementary, meaning they add up to 90 degrees. So I would take 90 and subtract the 44 degrees that I already have. And that's going to give me a value of 46. Now I know that this expression here would have to equal 46 degrees. So I take my equation and I solve for C. So I have 9C minus 8 equals 46. I would add 8 to both sides. On the left side, that cancels out. That gives me 54 on the right and 9C on the left. Divide by 9, and C equals 6. So I now know that my value for C is 6 and my value for D is 16. Moving on to question number 5. In question number 5, you have the answer and you have to work backwards to find your question. So we want to know what number we're taking the square root of to get 5, and what number are we taking the square root of to get 6. Well, that would mean that I would have to take my answer and square it. Well, 5 squared equals 25, and 6 squared equals 36. Therefore, B would be equivalent to 25/36. Because if I take the square root of 25, I get 5. If I take the square root of 36, I get 6. Moving on to number 6. In question number 6, we have an expression and we're trying to solve. We want to always make sure we use order of operations. So I'm looking for multiplication and division in order from left to right. So I start on the left side of my equation, and I have 150 divided by -5. That's the first problem that I'm going to complete. Well, 150 divided by -5 is -30. Technical difficulty here. Alright, so we get -30. Crossing that problem out, I still have times 2 plus 4. -30 times 2 is -60 plus 4. -60 plus 4, I have a negative and a positive number, therefore I'm going to subtract, which is going to give me -56 as my final answer. Moving on to question number 7. In question number 7, we are looking for the circumference of a circle that has a radius of 55 centimeters. Well, I need to find the diameter because I have the radius. The diameter is 2 times the radius. So I take 2 and I multiply it by 55, which is going to give me a value of 110 as my diameter. Now I'm going to use my formula for circumference, which is circumference equals pi times radius, 2 times the radius, pi times 2 times the radius, or pi times the diameter. So pi is equivalent to 3.14. The diameter we just figured out is 110. So I take my calculator and I punch in 3.14 times 110, and I get a value of 345 and 4/10. Therefore, my circumference is 345 and 4/10 of a centimeter. Moving on to question number 8. In question number 8, Milton won $15,000 in a drawing. He put the entire amount into a savings account with a 6.5% interest per year for 4 years. How much money did Milton have in the account after 4 years? So we start out with $15,000. We have to take our interest, which is 6.5%, and we change that into a decimal by moving my decimal 2 times to the left. And then I'm going to multiply my 6.5% times my original winnings of 15,000. So I take 15,000 and I multiply it times 6.5%, which gives me 975. Well, that's my interest for 1 year, but we left the money in the account for 4 years. So I multiply that interest times 4. And that's going to give me a value of $3,900 in interest. Well, that's just the interest. I still have the 15,000 that I originally put in the account. So I take the 15,000 and add the 3,900 in interest, and that's going to give me 18,900. So currently, after 4 years, Milton would have $18,900 in his account. Number 9. It says, how many options do I have if I have 4 swimsuit, 6 beach towels, and 3 pair of glasses? Well, fundamental counting principle says I multiply my options. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 times 3 gives me 72 different options. Moving on to number 10. In question number 10, it states, a freezer has 8 cherry, 4 lime popsicles in it. What is the probability that Kelly will randomly choose a cherry popsicle? Well, we have a total of 12 popsicles. 8 of them are cherry, and I always want to simplify. Dividing by 4, I get 2/3. So there's a 2/3 chance that Kelly will choose a cherry popsicle. We now want to plot this on our number line. Here's 0, 1, 1/2, so 2/3 will be approximately here. Moving on to number 11. We want to use long division to change this fraction into a decimal. 8 divided into 5 I can't do, so you'll see I added my decimal and my 0. Bring that decimal up. 8 goes into 50 6 times. Multiplying 8 times 6 is 48. And I get 2, add my 0, and bring down. 8 goes into 20 2 times. That gives me 16. Adding another 0 and bringing down. 8 goes into 40 5 times. So 5/8 as a decimal would be 625 thousandths. Moving on to number 12. In question number 12, we want to find what sides correspond with BD. Well, BD would be congruent to RS, and line segment AC would be congruent to line segment QP. Please use this study guide to study for your quiz on Friday, simple solution number 5. If you have any questions, please come see me during Power Hour for more instruction.